Masayoshi Son, the man, the myth, the legend. You might have heard about this Japanese businessman because of Alibaba and Jack Ma, and how Masa was basically the guy putting the company on the world stage.
He had no business plan and zero revenue. Employees, maybe 35, 40 employees. But his eyes was very strong eyes, strong, shining eyes.
Or maybe you heard about him because of his super tight relationship with Donald Trump.
Would you make it $200 billion instead of he can actually, believe it or not, he can actually afford to do that. Would you do that?
Well, my promise is 100, but he's now asking to do more. I think with your leadership, my partnership with you, with your support, I will try to make it happen.
Or maybe you've heard about him because he's the guy who brought the iPhone to Japan. Or, even more likely, because of Adam Neumann and the catastrophe that is WeWork. How Masayoshi was the guy who believed the most in the world in Adam Neumann and helped him build and destroy WeWork. In this video, I will tell you the incredibly interesting story about Masayoshi Son, or Masa as he's so lovingly called. Chapter 1. The Rebellious Korean. Masayoshi Son was born to a middle-class family in 1957 in Tosu, Saga Prefecture, to ethnic Korean parents, or actually called Zainichi Koreans in Japan. These Koreans have often lived in Japan for many generations, but are still not seen as Japanese and often had to live in slums dedicated to them during this time. Masa showed signs of being incredibly smart at an early age, but he felt that if he went the traditional path of his Japanese peers, he would be stopped because of his background, which is why he chose another path. You see, when he turned 18, instead of going to a Japanese school, he got into a university in the US, in California. And here, he thrived. He became obsessed with Silicon Valley and the tech revolution, especially in microchips that was happening at the time. Early on, it became quite obvious that he had something special. Because at 19, only 1 year in school, he invented a microchip multilingual translator gadget that he 1 year later sold to Sharp for over $1 million US. Chapter 2. The Birth of Masa's Baby, SoftBank. After graduating from UC Berkeley, Masa wanted to go back to Japan. You see, at this time, Japan was the mecca of technology, and the 80s was when Japanese tech companies were all at their peak. So in 1981, he started the company SoftBank, a company that's main task was to distribute software. However, Masa saw an opportunity to bring foreign software to the Japanese market. But Masa's ambitions far surpassed simple distribution. In the early 90s, Masa went on a buying spree, buying up companies that he deemed undervalued. And one of the most famous companies he bought at the time was a 40% stake in Yahoo, which helped SoftBank establish Yahoo Japan, a leading internet portal in Japan even to this day. SoftBank grew and grew during the 90s. And in 1994, Masayoshi Son decided to take the company public, and this was a great move. Over just a couple of years, SoftBank became one of the biggest tech companies in the world. But all good things have to come to an end. During the dot-com bubble burst in the early 2000s, Masa watched his company plummet, wiping up nearly 99% of the stock price. And Masa himself, he lost over $70 billion US of his fortune. But instead of crying or retreating, Masa actually doubled down. Because in 2006, he got a $15 billion loan and acquired Vodafone's struggling Japanese operations. Overnight, he had become one of Japan's largest mobile network providers. And this was the restart of SoftBank. His next move was even bolder. He convinced Apple to make SoftBank the exclusive Japanese carrier of the iPhone in 2008. This was unprecedented, because except for the US, Japan was the only country that carried the iPhone at this time. And on top of that, there were really strong Japanese phone makers that did everything to make all the other providers not sell the iPhone. It's hard to believe now, but at this time, Japanese phone makers were actually way ahead of the ones in the US and elsewhere. Japanese phones had TV services, they had a pretty good internet, and they had custom services built specifically for Japan. The iPhone had none of this, but it had good software, which these companies definitely didn't have, and it looked beautiful. What happened next was truly astonishing. Within 1 year, the first year of the iPhone in Japan, it captured 72% of Japan's smartphone market, a number that just kept growing as the device popularity skyrocketed among Japanese consumers. Thanks solely to the iPhone, SoftBank's subscriber base surged from 15 million in 2006 to over 30 million in 2012. The success of the iPhone led to the groundworks of the new SoftBank. Masa expanded SoftBank's reach into broadband services and satellite technologies, investing in global satellite internet companies like OneWeb or eAccess. His vision was to control the infrastructure that provided this new digital era, spanning everything from mobile and internet connectivity to digital investments, and this transformed SoftBank from a telecom player into an infrastructure giant in the digital age. And this leads us to Chapter 3, the Vision Fund. As SoftBank grew, Masa's ambitions became even more crazy. His vision took shape in 2017 when he launched the SoftBank Vision Fund, a $100 billion investment juggernaut aimed at reshaping global technology as we know it. To put this into perspective, the Vision Fund was over twice the size of any prior tech fund and had some seriously convinced backers. For example, the biggest backer was Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, who with the Saudi Arabia Public Investment Fund put in $45 billion himself into the Vision Fund. For Masa, this was more than just a money vehicle to invest in companies. For him, it was a blueprint for the future. He saw this as the engine to reach singularity, the moment artificial intelligence would surpass human intelligence, transforming every corner of society. And oh boy, he put this money to work. Billions and billions flowed into companies advancing AI, robotics, and next-generation tech like autonomous vehicles and digital commerce, doubling, tripling, or 10 or 100xing the valuation of anything Masa found interesting. Some of these bets were actually really successful. For example, his $32 billion acquisition of ARM Holdings, basically the architecture of all mobile processors in the world right now, placed SoftBank at the center of the global tech infrastructure. Today, ARM is valued at approximately $60 billion. Another major win for the Vision Fund was when they acquired Flipkart for $2.5 billion.
Flipkart is India's Amazon.
Just a year after, they managed to sell it to Walmart for $16 billion. However, the sheer scale of the Vision Fund put it under a lot of scrutiny. Perhaps the most controversial part was the alliance of Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, overseen by MBS. This sparked a lot of controversy, especially after the murder of the journalist Jamal Khashoggi in 2018. Critics started questioning whether Masa's grand vision was justified when its backers had blood on their hands. Looking at Masa's statements during this time, it kinda seemed like he didn't care. To him, the mission of singularity was more important than anything. And with the fund so big that he could basically outbid anyone that came in his crosshairs, he could ignore the critics. For now. Chapter 4. Masa the high-stakes gambler. Masayoshi Son had always been known as a bold, relentless risk-taker. But during his helm at the Vision Fund, Masa evolved into something else entirely. An incredibly high-stakes gambler willing to wager unprecedented sums on his vision for the future. The fund's early successes only fueled Masa's belief that pouring massive capital into companies could not just help them dominate their markets, but redefine entire industries. With each victory, he became increasingly fixated on the idea, pushing boundaries further. Nowhere was this more evident than in his bold, almost obsessive investment in WeWork. Masa's meeting with Adam Neumann, WeWork's eccentric founder, set the stage for one of Vision Fund's most notorious gambles. In their first encounter, Masa famously urged Neumann to think bigger, telling him bluntly, "You're not crazy enough." At another point, he challenged Neumann with, "Wouldn't it be more interesting if you had $1 trillion instead of just $1 billion?" Fired up by Masa's words, Neumann launched into a frenzy of expansion, with Masa backing him to the tune of $4.4 billion, inflating WeWork's valuation to $47 billion, even though the company was losing billions. Yet, as Neumann's visions grew even wilder, so did his erratic leadership. Spending ballooned, losses piled up, and tales of private jets, tequila-fueled board meetings, and bizarre corporate politics trickled up. By the time WeWork's IPO failed spectacularly in 2019, the company had become a symbol of unchecked ambition. Masa, forced to bail out WeWork with billions and billions more, publicly admitted that he had been foolish. The WeWork debacle exposed the limits of Masa's go big or go home philosophy, and for the first time, the world began to seriously question Masa's judgment. However, the WeWork saga was only the beginning of the fall. Masa's pattern of pouring billions into early-stage companies became a hallmark of the Vision Fund's spray and pray strategy, which critics viewed as reckless. Companies like Uber, Oyo, and Wag Labs saw their valuations skyrocket under SoftBank's influence, only to struggle with rapid expansion, outpacing their ability to generate profit. In some cases, these high-flying startups suffered significant losses and failed to live up to any expectation, casting doubt about Vision Fund's core strategy. The problem was further compounded by the immense pressure these companies felt to meet SoftBank's insane expectations. A lot of these companies don't exist anymore, because when they expanded too fast and couldn't make a profit when the Vision Fund was starting to suffer, Vision Fund just pulled the rug and ended it for them. While this is normal for any venture capital, the Vision Fund was a different beast. You see, this fund's massive capital influx fueled industry-wide overvaluations, and Masa's heavy reliance on debt made SoftBank's debt balloon to over $170 billion, putting both his company and its portfolio companies on very shaky financial grounds. But Masa was unfazed. To him, this was a small price to pay for changing the global world order. Amid this backlash, Masa's skill in managing his public image became a crucial asset, and he was good at it. When the WeWork fiasco imploded, he didn't hide like most CEOs likely would. Instead, Masa stood before the world, expressing regret and talking about responsibility. This was Masa's signature style, swinging from triumphant highs to vulnerable lows, reinforcing his image as a fearless visionary. At times, he even likened himself to Jesus Christ. Masayoshi Christ, a prophet, guiding technology towards salvation. Yes, for Masa, risk wasn't just a part of his strategy, it was his calling. But not everyone was sold on Masa's vision. At SoftBank, his relentless drive created a culture of burnout. Employees were encouraged to work 24 hours a day, even in their dream, Masa actually said that people should dream at least 70% of their dreams about their job. A lot of talented people quit during these years. But that was Masa's style. High stakes, high rewards. Go all in or do nothing. However, Masa's high-stake gambling strategy was falling apart. By the mid-2020s, when the COVID pandemic hit in full force, the Vision Fund was at a freefall, posting an unprecedented loss of $18 billion in just 1 year. Masa was quickly losing trust, and a lot of investors wanted their money back. Chapter 5: No longer Japanese enough. After years of high-stakes gambling, SoftBank's Vision Fund's unprecedented $18 billion loss have forced Masa to rethink. His relentless, cash-fueled expansion and towering valuations were now under fire, even from his allies. And prominent business figures argued that Masa's Silicon Valley-inspired approach was incompatible with Japan's long-term business values. They suggested that his high-risk investment style, funded heavily by Saudi Arabia and other foreign investors, was more fitting for Western markets than in Japan. Some influential voices within Japan's corporate elite distanced themselves from him, using his Korean heritage to frame him as an outsider with foreign motives that allegedly jeopardized SoftBank's and Japan's future. The Zainichi Korean identity that once empowered Masa to defy the norms and do different from his peers was now used as an explanation for SoftBank's failures. Despite these blowbacks, Masa was quick on his feet. By 2021, he had begun offloading underperforming assets and moving SoftBanks towards a more balanced portfolio focused on sectors with long-term stability, such as AI and telecommunications. This move helped restore investor confidence, and by 2022, SoftBank's Vision Fund actually reported modest gains again, with Masa appearing determined to move forward with more measured approaches. However, the era of record-shattering tech gambles was effectively over for now, and Masa's approach to risk had visibly shifted. But it was clear that his dreams of singularity was not yet gone, because in 2023, Masa launched a new fund, the Vision Fund 2, with a focus on more sustainable growth, but yet with the flair of Masayoshi Son. Even though this fund is more measured and much smaller, he has still huge sway over tech companies in the Silicon Valley. He's one of the biggest investors in OpenAI and other massive AI companies. Masa may not hold as much power as he did during his peak with the Vision Fund, but is still one of the largest forces in the world of tech.
It's okay. We can cry together.
Epilogue. What's next for Masayoshi Son? Despite having multiple setbacks that would probably ruin a normal person, Masayoshi Son is still laser focused on the future. AI, biotech, and sustainable energy industries he believes will define the next century is what he's focused on investing any money he has on. Masa's message has also been consistent. Whoever leads these fields of tech will shape the future, and he intends for SoftBank to be at that helm, orchestrating shifts that redefine society as we know it, and not only on Earth. Masa has invested billions in space technology, and he envisions that SoftBank will be a key player in global satellite connectivity, just like SpaceX's Starlink. You might call Masa overconfident, or even delusional at times. I know many Japanese people sure do. But one thing is clear, Japan is at a crossroads. With a shrinking population and an aging economy, the old guard's vision of self-contained stability is unsustainable. Masa's strategy of embracing international partnerships, immigrations, and transformative technology offers a model that Japan will need to survive. A new generation of leaders that are risk takers, shaped by diverse backgrounds and global perspectives, is emerging, and Masa may just be the biggest one of them. And these people have the ability to change Japan's future into a sustainable future. In the end, Masa may never become fully embraced by Japan's elite, but his legacy is already rewriting Japan's sense of identity. As traditional institutions falter, Masa's influence will reshape Japan's future, driving it towards a vision that the country needs to survive. I hope you enjoyed this video, and please, for the love of God, like and subscribe because it helps me to create more. And other than that, I just want to say goodbye.